It was a cold, gray morning when Eliza sat by the window of her small apartment in Chicago, watching the rain trickle down the glass. It had been exactly 8 years since Jonah disappeared. 8 long years since he walked out the door with nothing but a backpack and a kiss on her forehead, saying he'd be back in a week. A hiking trip, he'd called it. A chance to disconnect, to clear his mind. She never saw him again. No calls. No texts. Nothing. At first, Eliza thought he might have gotten lost. But after the police search yielded no signs of him, not even a footprint or clue in the dense Wisconsin forest, panic set in. Then came grief. And eventually, something harder, the aching acceptance of loss. People told her to move on, that he must have died, that 8 years was too long to wait for someone who left no trace. But something inside her never quite let go. She hadn't touched his side of the closet. His guitar still leaned against the wall by the couch. She even kept his favorite cereal stocked, even though she never ate it. Every birthday, every anniversary, she lit a candle by the lake where they used to go. "Come back to me," she'd whisper. But years passed, and nothing changed. Until that day. It started with a knock. Soft. Hesitant. She wasn't expecting anyone. Maybe a neighbor? She opened the door, and for a moment, her world froze. There he stood, wet from the rain. Hair longer, streaked with gray. Face thinner, scarred on the left side. Eyes tired, older, but unmistakably Jonas. She dropped the mug she was holding. It shattered on the floor, but she didn't even flinch. "Jonah?" she whispered. He looked at her like he couldn't believe she was real. "Eliza," he said, voice cracking, like he hadn't spoken her name in years. She took a step back in shock, but her feet betrayed her and she rushed forward, throwing her arms around him. His body trembled in her grasp. "I thought you were dead," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I thought you were gone forever." He held her tightly, murmuring, "I tried to come back. I never stopped trying." After the tears and shock settled into silence, they sat in the kitchen. She made him tea, hands shaking as she poured the water. "Where have you been?" she finally asked. Jonah stared into the steam rising from his cup. "It's hard to explain." She waited. He took a deep breath. "I did go hiking, up near the Apostle Islands. But I got lost. I slipped on a ridge and fell. Woke up days later in a cabin. A man had pulled me from the woods. Said I was lucky to be alive. But something wasn't right." Eliza's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "He wouldn't let me leave," Jonah said flatly. "He lived off the grid. No phone. No car. He had traps and a generator and a twisted sense of company. Said he'd saved me, so I owed him. Said the world had moved on without me, and that I'd be better off starting over. He kept me there, isolated, for years." Eliza's hand flew to her mouth. "You're saying you were held captive?" Jonah nodded slowly. "At first I tried to run. He always found me. Once I made it 10 miles out, barefoot. He dragged me back and chained me to the stove for a week. After that, I stopped trying." Her eyes welled up. "How did you get away?" "He got sick," Jonah whispered. "Last winter. Real bad. I think it was pneumonia. He stopped eating. Couldn't get out of bed. I waited until he passed out. Took the keys. I walked 2 days through snow before I found a road. A trucker picked me up." Eliza couldn't believe what she was hearing. 8 years, stolen. And all this time, he was barely surviving, thinking no one would ever find him. "I went to your parents' house," Jonas said. "They moved. The neighbors didn't know where. Then I came here. I didn't know if you still lived here. I just hoped." Eliza reached for his hand. "You came home." The days that followed were surreal. Jonah moved in, though nothing felt the same. He flinched at loud noises. Slept with a knife under his pillow. Sometimes he'd wake up screaming. Eliza did her best to help him heal, but it wasn't easy. He hadn't been in the real world in nearly a decade. The internet, smartphones, even how people talked, everything had changed. He didn't have ID, a job, or even proof he existed. They had to go through a long process with police and investigators to reopen his missing person case. Eventually, DNA and fingerprints confirmed his identity. The story hit the news. Missing man returns after 8 years in wilderness captivity. Reporters camped outside the apartment. People called him a miracle. But Jonah didn't want fame. He wanted peace. One afternoon, Eliza found him in the bathtub, fully clothed, staring at the wall. She sat beside him. "You okay?" she asked. He didn't answer. "I don't know who I am anymore," he finally said. "I lost everything in that cabin. Years I'll never get back. Friends. Family. You." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You're here now? That's what matters." He looked at her. "Do you still love me?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "But I know you're not the same man. And I'm not the same woman. We'll learn each other again." He kissed her forehead like he did 8 years ago. In time, Jonah started therapy. Slowly, the nightmares faded. He began playing music again. Eliza bought him a new guitar. He took long walks without panicking. He found a support group for trauma survivors and spoke about his experience. His story inspired others. One day, he received a letter. It was from the sister of the man who had kept him captive. She apologized, said her brother had been mentally ill for years, that their family had lost touch, that she was sorry for what Jonah went through. Jonah sat with the letter for hours before burning it. He said it was the only closure he needed. Eventually, Eliza took him back to the lake where they used to go. They stood in silence, hand in hand, watching the water ripple. "This is where I last prayed you'd come back," she said. "I heard you," he replied. They laughed quietly. Months passed. Jonah got a job helping teach music to kids. Eliza returned to writing. They built something new, not a perfect recreation of what they had, but a second chance. A new chapter. One night, Jonah knelt on one knee in their living room, holding a simple ring. "I lost 8 years," he said. "I don't want to lose another second without you." She cried as she said yes. At their small backyard wedding, surrounded by friends and family, Jonah gave a speech. "I was lost," he said, "but I survived because I held on to the thought of coming back to her. That hope kept me alive. And now, being here, with her, I finally feel free." The guests stood and clapped. Eliza's heart, once hollowed by grief, was full again. And though they could never rewrite the past, they had something just as powerful: the future.